Where was your soul before your birth? By Paramahansa Yogananda. You have arrived at this video, and that is not a coincidence. When the soul seeks deep answers, when the heart beats with a restlessness it cannot explain, life places before us signs, doors, teachers, words. You are not here only for entertainment or fleeting curiosity. If you have come this far, it is because an ancient thirst has awakened in you. A thirst that may have remained dormant for many lives, but today vibrates again within you. Since childhood, we have heard phrases like the soul is immortal, or we are more than this body, but we almost never stop to ask, what does that really mean? What is the soul? Where does it come from? And the most unsettling of all, where was your soul before your birth? Neither modern science with all its progress, nor religious scriptures with their symbolic language, have managed to answer these questions completely, because they are not mere data, they are windows of the soul. When one looks through them, the entire direction of life can change. Today, we will begin a journey into that mystery, a journey that will take us beyond the mind, beyond everyday memories, to that secret place where the memory of the soul awakens. There, the voice and wisdom of Paramahansa Yogananda illuminate the path, like a lamp in the midst of darkness. If you feel within that you wish to embark on this path, consider this channel your spiritual home. Give a like to this video, not out of obligation, but because that simple gesture is a sign of awareness, a way of saying, I am here, I am listening. Subscribe because this path is long, and we would love to call you at every step of the journey. Activate the notification bell so that the next time your soul's voice resounds, you will be the first to hear it. Now come, do not close your eyes outward, but turn them inward. This journey begins with a mystery that existed before your birth, and which is still alive today, in you, in me, in all of us. The mystery of the soul before birth. Paramahansa Yogananda, master of yoga and eternal wisdom, taught that the soul never dies and never is born. What is born and dies is only the body, the temporary garment the soul uses to manifest itself in this world. Imagine for a moment that the soul is like the light of the sun. The sun illuminates everything, but if you place a blue glass lamp, the light seems blue. If you place a red crystal, it seems red. The soul is that immutable, eternal light. The body, the mind, the personality are merely the crystals through which it filters. When a crystal breaks, death, the light does not disappear. It simply becomes free. Then the great question arises, if the soul is eternal, what does it do between one body and another? Where is it before incarnating in this physical world? Does it rest somewhere? Does it travel to another plane? Does it prepare? Yogananda reveals to us that the arrival of the soul on earth is not an accident or a random event. It is part of a vast, subtle, and divine plan, a cosmic design that responds to the law of karma, the law of cause and effect that intertwines all our actions, thoughts, and emotions. The soul and the subtle planes. Before birth, the soul does not wander in a meaningless void. It remains in planes of subtler consciousness, invisible to physical eyes, but real to inner perception. Yogananda called them astral and causal planes, and also referred to the Akashic realm, where the imprints of all our lives are recorded as vibrations in universal consciousness. There, the soul contemplates the panorama of its past existences. It observes where it failed to love, where it gave in to hatred, where it fell into anger or chose selfishness. And at the same time, it recognizes its progress, the moments when it cultivated compassion, patience, forgiveness, wisdom. It is not an intellectual process with words or reasoning, but an intuitive understanding. The soul knows, feels, sees in a language of energy and light. And in that contemplation, a divine impulse arises to continue its journey, to learn what is missing, to complete what was left unfinished. The choice of birth. And here we reach a crucial point. The soul chooses where to be born. We are not thrown randomly into a family, a culture, or a country. The choice responds to a plan of inner evolution. The soul, according to its level of consciousness, selects the environment, the parents, the circumstances that will offer the necessary lessons. This includes both pleasant experiences and painful trials. We do not always choose what we want. We choose what we need to grow. That is why, sometimes, we are born into families dominated by conflicts. That we come to learn patience, forgiveness, strength. At other times, we are born in environments of love and harmony. There we come to deepen compassion and service. Everything responds to the complex web of karma. Yogananda observed, in deep states of meditation, that even the most evolved souls consciously choose where to incarnate, not out of karmic necessity, but for service. They are the great masters who are born to guide humanity. The soul and karmic bonds. A revealing aspect is that the soul is drawn not only by love, but also by unresolved ties. If in a past life there was hatred, resentment, or enmity, the karmic law may attract those souls again in the form of parents, children, siblings, or partners, so that the relationship can be transformed. Thus we understand why so often we feel an immediate connection, positive or negative, with certain people. It is not the first time we have met them. They are souls with whom we share a long journey. The descent into the mother's womb. When the soul finally chooses its next birth, it begins to enter the field of consciousness of the mother. First as a subtle spark in her aura, then as an energy current that slowly merges with physical matter. During pregnancy, the mother may have intense dreams, unusual emotions, or even sensations of the divine. All these are signs that a soul has entered her vibrational field. Most do not recognize these signals, but in ancient traditions it was clearly understood. Gestation is a sacred act, a bridge between worlds. Before fully entering the body, the soul is warned of the trials it will face in its next life. It accepts everything because it knows that each challenge is a step toward liberation. The veil of forgetfulness. However, there is an essential detail. When the soul enters the body, it must pass through the veil of illusion. It forgets who it was, where it came from, and why it came. This forgetting is necessary because only in direct experience, without previous memory, can it truly learn, choose, and grow. That is why newborns do not remember their divine origin. Although if one looks deeply into their eyes, one can still see a glimmer, a radiance that seems to come from another place, from another time. The womb as the first school. Yogananda affirmed that the mother's womb is the first school of the soul. Everything the mother thinks, feels, and experiences leaves an imprint on the child's consciousness. If the mother is anxious, fearful, or angry, those vibrations are transmitted. If she is at peace, loving, and trusting, those energies are also imprinted. This explains why some children are born with inexplicable fears, deep sadness, or extraordinary talents without prior practice. They're imprints of past lives, yes, but also of the energy received during gestation. Birth as a spiritual explosion. Finally, the moment of birth arrives. From the outside, it seems like a simple biological event, but in reality, it is a spiritual explosion. The soul, which remained in silence in the darkness of the womb, takes its first breath. And that breath is not just air. It is the first dialogue with the earth. The newborn's first cry is, according to Yogananda, the sign that the soul realizes it has returned to the world of illusion. It cries because it knows it has forgotten its origin. And at the same time, with that cry, it announces, I have returned, I come to remember. Thus, the first part of this journey has shown us that before being born, the soul was not lost, but preparing. It was choosing, learning, contemplating. And that birth is not an absolute beginning, but the continuation of a long process of spiritual evolution. In the next part, we will delve deeper into what happens after birth, how the soul faces forgetfulness, how society imposes identities, and how, through subtle signs, it slowly begins to remember who it really is. The soul's journey after birth, forgetting, trials, and remembrance. Introduction, from mystery to awakening. In the first part of this journey, we immersed ourselves in the mystery of where the soul was before birth. We discovered that we do not come from nothing, that we are not a biological coincidence, but eternal travelers who prepare in subtle planes, carefully choosing the lessons and circumstances that each new life will bring. Now we arrive at the next chapter, the afterward. What happens to the soul once it crosses the threshold of birth? What takes place in the first days, months, and years of existence? Why do we forget our divine origin and enter a life marked by trials, challenges, joys, and sorrows? Paramahhansa Yogananda reminds us of something essential. Birth is merely the beginning of a new stage of eternal learning. But upon arriving here, consciousness faces a paradox. On the one hand, the soul is eternal, perfect, conscious. On the other, it must inhabit a fragile, limited body, laden with karmic memory and exposed to the influence of a dense material world. The story that begins in the newborn's cry is much more than biology. It is the drama of divine consciousness entering the stage of illusion, known in the Indian tradition as Maya. The veil of forgetfulness, the great paradox. One of the deepest mysteries of human existence is forgetfulness. If the soul has already lived countless experiences, if it has loved, hated, learned, failed, and triumphed in hundreds or thousands of previous lives, why do we remember nothing at birth? Yogananda explains that this forgetting is not a mistake, but a grace. If a child were born remembering all the pains, betrayals, and tragedies of past lives, it could hardly live with lightness and spontaneity. Total memory would be like carrying a library of 1,000 open books all at once. The soul would be paralyzed by confusion. Therefore, the veil of forgetfulness acts as an act of divine mercy. It allows us to begin each existence as if it were a blank page, even when the invisible letters of karma are already written between the lines. That forgetfulness, however, is not total. Deep in the heart, something always remembers. We feel it in déjà vu, in encounters with people who seem familiar even though we are meeting them for the first time, in natural talents that arise without explanation, in spontaneous affinities with cultures, languages, or practices we had never studied. Those flashes are half-open doors to the soul's memory. Childhood, purity as a reflection of the soul. Observe a newborn. Their eyes still do not comprehend the external world, but they seem to look beyond us. Many parents say they feel that the baby's eyes look through them, as if seeing another dimension. This happens because, in the first months and years, the soul is still partially connected with the subtle planes. It has not yet fully submerged into the sleep of matter. Therefore, small children often speak with invisible friends, see lights, perceive presences that adults do not notice. Yogananda explained that a child's innocence and purity are reflections of closeness to the soul. There's still no social masks, no formed ego, no layers of conditioning. The child lives more in being than in doing. However, little by little, the soul begins to adapt to the physical world. It learns to walk, to speak, to think logically. And in that process, the connection with the inner planes weakens. It is as if the soul falls asleep inside the body, trapped by the hypnotic force of material illusion, society, and the masks of the ego. After the first years of innocence, society begins to shape identity. The family, the school, the culture, the media, all build upon the child an artificial self. Your name is such and such. You belong to this family. You are a citizen of this country. You must think in this way. This is right, that is wrong. And thus the soul, eternal, unlimited, divine, begins to identify with a name, a body, a nationality, a personal story. The ego forms as a mask that hides the true face of being. According to Yogananda, this identification with the ego is the main cause of human suffering, because the ego always feels fear, lack, competition. The soul, on the other hand, always knows it is fullness, peace, and oneness with the all. Karma awakening in life. Once the soul is established on earth, karma begins to unfold. It is not punishment, nor an external judge, but the energy we have sown in past lives manifesting to be completed. If we sowed hatred, we reap conflicts. If we sowed love, we reap support and opportunities. If we sowed selfishness, we find loneliness. If we sowed service, we find open hearts. Life places us in scenarios that seem casual, but are actually exact opportunities for our spiritual growth. Therefore, Yogananda said, trials are not enemies, they are teachers in disguise. Every obstacle, every pain, every difficult encounter is a way in which the soul remembers what it has not yet learned. The awakening of spiritual memory. Although most people live trapped in the ego's illusion, there always comes a moment when something awakens. It may be a deep suffering, a loss, an illness, or conversely, an experience of love so intense that the soul remembers its true nature. That awakening is like a ray of sun piercing the clouds. Suddenly, we feel that we're not this body, that we're not this story, that there is something more. And that feeling is the beginning of the conscious spiritual path. Yogananda taught meditation techniques, such as Kriya Yoga, precisely to accelerate this remembrance. Because to meditate is not to escape from life, but to remember who you are beyond the masks. Life as the school of the soul. At this point, we can understand something fundamental. Life is neither punishment nor reward. It is a school. Every experience, pleasant or painful, is a lesson. The soul comes here not to accumulate possessions, nor to conquer titles, nor to impress others. It comes to expand consciousness. It comes to learn to love, to forgive, to detach, to serve, to recognize the divine in everything. Therefore, many times what we believe to be misfortune is actually a blessing in disguise. The loss of a job can teach us humility and trust. A friend's betrayal can teach us discernment and strength. An illness can teach us to value life and seek the essential. The inner calling. As the years pass, we all hear, at some point, an inner calling. We do not always recognize it, but it is there. It may come in the form of a troubling question. What am I here for? It may be a longing for peace that nothing external can satisfy. It may be a desire to serve, to meditate, to read spiritual scriptures. That calling is the soul reminding you who you are. Most ignore it, silence it with distractions, pleasures, or worries. But some listen, follow it, and then the true spiritual journey begins. The soul on the path toward liberation. Yogananda assures us that no life is in vain. Even if a person seems to waste their time, even if they live immersed in mistakes, everything contributes to learning. The soul is patient. It knows it has eternities to awaken. However, he also reminds us that liberation is possible here and now. We do not need to wait thousands of lives. If we cultivate discipline, love, service, and meditation, we can awaken in this very existence to the full remembrance of our divine nature. After birth, the soul crosses the veil of forgetfulness, submerges in the play of the ego, faces its karma, and, little by little, begins to remember. The whole of life is nothing more than a process of awakening. And thus we understand, before birth, we choose. After birth, we forget. And during life, we remember. That is the sacred circle of the soul on its journey toward union with the divine. In the next part, we will explore in greater depth how the soul, at the end of life, leaves the body, what happens after death, and how that process connects with the preparation for a new birth or for some with final liberation. The great passage, the soul's journey after death. Introduction, the mystery we all share. There is a certainty that unites all humanity beyond cultures, religions, eras, and beliefs. We are all going to die. Birth and death are the two inevitable doors of earthly existence. And yet, throughout history, death has been one of humankind's greatest fears. Most perceive it as the end, as the annihilation of the self, as a dark and incomprehensible void. But the great spiritual masters, among them Paramhansa Yogananda, pass on to us another vision. Death is not the end, but a transit. It is the changing of the soul's garment, the abandonment of a temporary body to continue life in another dimension. Yogananda used to say, "Death is a dream, a passage from one room to another, a change of scenery in the theater of life." In this part, we will explore in detail what happens when the soul leaves the body, how it experiences the subtle planes, how it faces the review of its past life, how karma acts as a silent guide, and in what way all of this prepares the next birth, or, in some cases, the liberation from the cycle. The instant of departure. At the moment of physical death, the first thing that happens is that prana, the vital energy that sustains the body, begins to withdraw. The organs stop functioning one by one. The heart stops, the breath fades, the mind loses contact with the senses. To the external observer, the body lies inert. But for the soul, what is experienced is a gradual process of detachment. Consciousness begins to separate from the physical form, like a bird preparing to leave its cage. The Vedic texts describe how, at that moment, an inner film presents itself. Memories, images, scenes from the entire life that pass quickly before consciousness. It is not an external judgment, but a spontaneous review of what has been lived. Yogananda taught that what matters most at that instant is not wealth, nor fame, nor titles, but the state of the mind and the heart. If someone dies with fear, attachment, or anger, their departure will be turbulent. If they die in peace, with faith and surrender to the divine, the transit will be luminous and gentle. Therefore, in many traditions, it is recommended to meditate, pray, or repeat God's name in the last moments, because the last thought powerfully influences the soul's immediate destiny. The detachment from the physical body. When vital energy fully withdraws, the soul separates from the physical body. What remains is a corpse, an empty vehicle like old clothing that no longer serves. Many people who have had near-death experiences describe the sensation of floating outside the body, of observing the scene from above, of feeling lightness and freedom. This coincides with what the scriptures teach. The soul realizes it was never that limited body. However, it is not yet fully free. It remains bound to the subtle body, composed of mind, ego, and karmic memory, which it carries with it through the transit. The crossing into the subtle planes. After leaving the physical body, the soul enters what in the Indian tradition is called astral loka, the astral plane. It is a dimension subtler than the physical, made of energy and thought. Yogananda described the astral plane as a place of bright colors, ethereal music, and indescribable beauty, where the soul experiences realities created by its own consciousness. It is not a fixed heaven nor an eternal hell, but a state of vibration in accordance with accumulated karma. Harmonious, loving, and spiritual souls often experience luminous regions, full of peace, companionship of elevated beings, and possibilities for learning. Souls that carry much hatred, attachment, or selfishness may feel trapped in darker regions, where they face their own fears and shadows. All this is part of a pedagogical process. The soul receives the reflection of its earthly life, not as punishment, but as an opportunity to understand. The review of life. An important stage after death is karmic review. The soul contemplates, along with guides or higher beings, the actions it performed, the words it spoke, the thoughts it cultivated. What is remarkable is that in this review it not only sees what it did, but feels the impact of its actions on others. If in life it hurt someone, it now experiences within itself the pain it caused. If it helped, it now feels the joy it generated. This process is not an external court, but a perfect mirror of the law of cause and effect. The soul understands, at a deep level, the consequences of its behavior. And from that understanding arises the need to return to earth to learn, repair, and grow. Rest and preparation. Once the review is complete, the soul usually rests in planes of peace. It is like an interval between incarnations, a time to assimilate what has been lived. Some souls remain in those planes for a long time, others return quickly. It depends on the degree of evolution, on the pending karma, and on the necessary lessons. During this period, the soul meets loved ones who have also departed, receives instruction from spiritual guides, and, in many cases, works inwardly to prepare the next life. The choice of a new birth. Contrary to what many think, birth is not completely random. The soul, together with divine forces, chooses or accepts the circumstances of its next incarnation according to the lessons it needs. Parents, country, body, tendencies are chosen. Nothing is by chance. Every detail responds to the greater plan of learning. If someone needs to learn compassion, they may be born into a family that faces difficulties. If they need to learn detachment, they may be born into abundance. If they need to overcome pride, they may be born with limitations. Thus, what from the outside seems unjust is actually an exact board of evolutionary opportunities. The possibility of liberation. Not all souls return immediately to the cycle of births and deaths. Some, after a long path of spiritual discipline, reach liberation, known in Sanskrit as moksha. Yogananda taught that the soul's ultimate goal is not to perfect life on earth, but to fully remember its divine identity and unite again with God. When the soul frees itself from attachments, desires, and the ego, it no longer needs to reincarnate. It then remains in higher states of consciousness, in union with the divinity, although many times great masters choose to return voluntarily to help humanity. Stories and examples from Yogananda. Paramahhansa Yogananda recounted multiple experiences about the transit of souls. In his teachings and an autobiography of Yogi, he mentions how advanced disciples departed in full consciousness, meditating, calling God's name, even deciding the exact moment of their departure. This shows that death, far from being an enemy, can become the supreme act of spiritual surrender. The soul's journey after death is not a dark mystery, but a natural process, full of love and purpose. We do not end in the grave. We continue to exist, learning, remembering, and preparing for new steps on the eternal path. Thus the cycle closes. Before birth, the soul prepares. After birth, it forgets and learns. After death, it remembers and prepares again. Until, one day, the cycle breaks and the soul fully awakens in its eternal home, God. May your heart remain open, your soul strong, and your love always unconditional. Yea, Gurudev. If this message touched your heart and helped you to better understand the journey, remembering that it is part of your karma and your spiritual growth, support our work with a super thanks so that we can continue creating transformative content with themes that inspire, help people, and bring more light to every life. Do not forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if it resonates with you, and share with your friends so that our message reaches wherever it is needed.